Hello and welcome to another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and guys, the next couple of weeks of shows are going to be dedicated to a really awesome band that I recently discovered. Well, I didn't discover the band. The band already existed, but they've come into my reality. Here's what happened. So my friend Terry T-Bone Mathley, who has a podcast called T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the Other Side, fantastic interview, one of the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. Even if I don't know or have any clue who his guest is, whenever I listen to one of his shows, he just brings everything alive for me. He's so great at asking questions, being very familiar with his guests, where I'm like, all right, here's what I know about you. Let's learn the rest. He's much more professional and much more talented. But anyway, he had posted something on Twitter at one point that this band was looking for people to do interviews with because their new album was coming out. And so I took a screenshot of it and I'm like, okay, I need to get them on the list and reach out and all that good stuff. Didn't know anything about them, never heard of them. And I thought, okay, well, I'll do some research on them in the meantime and then, find a good time to put them in the schedule. And at that point, things were getting so busy with the book that I was working on and another project. So I thought, okay, well, I'll keep them on the list. I need to get this done. The album's coming out and all this. So finally, I'm like, you know what? I really just have to do it. And now the album's been out for a while. I'm way behind the curve on this, but really glad I did. As I researched them, I found out that one of the people that I grew up listening to, keyboardist David Stone from the band Rainbow, was on the album. And I thought, wow, that's super cool. And so I went and bought the album and I listened to it and I thought, wow, this is some really good stuff. It really reminds me of what the metal scene was like in Colorado Springs when I was playing in a band there. We had a very progressive scene. And I mean, you think Colorado Springs, it's all, horses and tumbleweeds, but it's not. It's a pretty big city now. And there was some really good bands in the late 80s, early 90s there. One or two of them still exist, actually, which is really cool. But this was the kind of music that we were playing. So I was immediately just drawn into it, but it's very technical. It's very intelligently done. It's very well performed. And so as soon as I listened to the album, I was hooked right there. So this next couple of weeks is going to be my interviews with the band as well as my review of the album and their thoughts on the songs. Scheduling has been very, very difficult. So between one interview that ended with the power going out and another one that just ended with constant scheduling conflicts, but we've been able to make it work as well as possible up to this point. So don't have thoughts on all the songs from everyone, which is okay, because I have plenty to give you in that review. And that will be coming next week. This week, I'm doing the interviews. My interview with the vocalist, Michelle, will be part of the review episode because it was a fairly short interview. That's the one when the power went out. And it's been a challenge to do this. But you know what? I've really enjoyed talking to these people. They're all absolutely wonderful, great musicians, every one of them. So creative, so talented. And you hear that in every song on the album. It's just fantastic. And we'll get to the album next week. But now we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, and that will include some bits about the album, obviously. And then the individual thoughts on the songs will then be part of the review, just like with Graham Bonnet. Love when I can do that. I love when I can have the actual artists talk about the songs with me and get their perspective on them, how they came about, what they remember about them, something specific that happened sometimes. It's just such a joy for me to be able to do that. But before I get to my interview with Jerry Fielden, who is the primary writer and guitar player of the band, as well as mandolin, just a quick update on what's happening with me. So the album has slowed in production only because of the injury to my arm. It doesn't appear that it's going to get better for a while, so I'm just trying to get through it, but it's taking a lot longer than I had anticipated, along with my podcast schedule. And then the book series is in the process of being edited now. So that also will have an effect on the particular release date of the album. Reason being is that there's no drop dead release date for the album. Even though, the closer you get to the end of the year, you really don't want to release anything because you're interfering with Christmas and all that, unless you're doing a Christmas release, which this is not. And But with the book, it has a very finite deadline of when you want to get that first one out there. So this is a trilogy, so it's important that the first one release by a certain time frame. So that might take a little bit of precedence over getting the album done. We'll see how it all comes together. I'm still hoping for August for the album, but I'm not really sure at this point, just because it is going a little slower than I had hoped. But I think it's going to be a good album. I think you will like it. I hope that you will like it, and we'll just see. So all that being said, let's talk to my new friend Jerry Fielden, who is just a fantastic guitar player, great writer. And I had so much fun talking to him, hearing stories of people he works with. He is also a book editor. He was editing his mom's books. He does the translations for Ian Gillan's website, Caramba, which was a complete, left field surprise when I read that. He's just a very talented musician. He's played with a lot of wonderful people. He's toured and played on stage with a lot of great people, been a support act, just amazing history that he has. And all this came out of the fact that somebody retweeted, "Hey, we've got an album coming out. We're looking for some press." So it just goes to show that sometimes good things come out of just the simplest amount of effort, just a simple tweet. Somebody retweets it, somebody else sees it, boom. Now I found an album that I absolutely love, can't wait to dig into their back catalog, and met some really awesome people. Got to talk to David Stone, who I never thought, in my wildest dreams that would ever happen. And that interview is going to be coming right after this one. So check whatever podcast player that you're listening on. You should already see that one on your playlist. And good times, guys. Let's have a good time. I hope you enjoy the interview as much as I did doing it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to bring our guest on the show. I am very excited to talk to this man. He has had a very interesting life. I love the new album from AraPacis. This is Jerry Fielden. Jerry, how are you?
I'm great, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking some time to come on the show. And please tell me I pronounced the band's name right.
Yes, that was absolutely correct.
Good, because I haven't had any coffee yet, so I'm off to a good start.
Oh, really? Grab a cup of Joe for sure. Some people tried to pronounce it AraPacis or AraPacis. Me, I just like AraPacis. It just, grabs you.
It's got a flow to it.
Well, it's the Italian pronunciation. So if you go to Rome, you say Dove el AraPacis.
Ooh,
something like that.
That sounds so much better with an Italian accent.
Oh, thank you.
I have to say, this is the first album of yours that I've heard, and I think is it your 11th?
Well, it's actually our 8th full length, and we have 3 EPs as well.
Okay. This is the first time I've heard your music, and I was absolutely blown away. I usually listen to music while I'm doing 2 or 3 other things, and I just had to stop and listen to the entire album because it just drew me in right from the beginning. Did you design it to be this technical?
Well, I'm honored. The way I write albums is like I come up with an idea and I just go run with it. It could be anything. So no, not designed to be completely technical. I mean, if you listen, to Back at the Gate, that's blues, with a little bit of jazz. So it's not hugely technical.
I just thought there were so many unexpected twists and turns that it wasn't predictable at all. It wasn't like rock and roll where you can go, okay, I know that we're about to hit a chorus or a pre-chorus and then there's going to be a solo. This just went where it went, and it just took off in surprising musical directions, different chord changes I didn't expect. It's a real thrill to listen to.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's an honor.
Now, you obviously were influenced. I mean, you were working musician in the 70s, so you were obviously influenced by a lot of those bands. Was King Crimson a big influence for you?
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of, I also met Robert Fripp, John Wetton, Bill Bruford, which were part of a very huge incarnation of King Crimson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these guys are just amazing.
Now, for you, because you've met a lot of the people that you really were influenced by, did you find that meeting them really lived up to the expectation of what you would hope they would be as a person?
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean, I've met some really amazing people. I mean, like I can, Don Airy is one I was talking to you about offline there. And also Brian May, really nice person. Keith Emerson, Wetton and Bruford, definitely nice. And Fripp, he was really interesting because he took the time, like, to show me his right hand, how he was using it on the guitar, so I learned something there, and another guy that I used to hang around with in Montreal, and he's ill recently, is Frank Marino. Frank's a really good friend. I mean, I was over at his house a couple of years ago. He helped me produce one of my albums, Paradox of Denial. So, yeah, I mean, everybody have a thought for Frank. I don't know what his illness is, but it's stopping him from playing. So that's all I know.
That's the harshest thing for a musician.
Yeah, I've seen it happen with Keith Emerson, and he was, prodded by some of his fans to, you can't play anymore. So he killed himself basically over that.
Right. I was devastated when I heard that. And I thought, it's so sad to me, the demands that people, that your fans make on you when they became fans because you gave them something. And then they somehow turn around and seem to have an ownership, or think that they have some kind of ownership over you. And then they make demands like that. I think I was more saddened by the way he was treated than anything else.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I make my music so diverse. So they can't go, well, I expect this from you.
That's true.
Because right now I tell people, expect nothing from AraPacis because it could be anything. And we've had some critics say that we're good at this so-and-so genre, so we should stay in so-and-so genres, but, that's not us. It's like, go where thou wilt kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to go with what you're feeling as a musician. If you're not going in the direction that your soul is telling you to go, or your fingers are telling you to go, then it's not going to come out in a way that you're going to be happy with.
Yeah, we only have obligations to ourselves. And if what we come out with is loved by the fans, that's great. They get it. Well,
I think you have to write what you're happy with, and then the hope is that people will enjoy it as well. But if you're writing because you're told to write a certain way, I know sometimes if you're, when you're with a record company, they say, well, we need a single, and you have to do certain things under those contracts. But for the most part, when you can write what you feel, that's the music that's going to come out the best.
I mean, we have signed to not really a majors, but we are with Black House Records for distro. And these guys are, middle, a very good little record company. And they've always supported us 100%. And now we're also with... it's Bullseye Records of Canada, which is a great historical company. They've done a lot of big names. We were really chuffed when Jamie Vernon, the president, said, yeah, sure, I'll help you guys, give you some e-distro, electronic distro. And I go, that's fantastic, to be grouped with such a bunch of legendary Canadian bands and so forth.
Well, sure.
Gatto, all those bands.
It's interesting, though, that the digital and physical distribution is broken up by two different companies. Is that a new trend that I haven't noticed?
Well, what I was doing for a while, I had both distributions by one company, and every company we've been with has they've been small operations. So if the owner got sick, that was it. I have 2 albums in limbo that I'm trying to get the rights back, who are, the distributor won't give me the rights back, but the record company, he doesn't remember stuff,
Oh.
So for Netherworld and Disturbing Awakening, I don't know who has the rights right now.
Wow.
I want them back. So after that, we were with Note Music. They folded, but they gave us our right back, so that was okay. So I did the electronic distro myself for a while, using Route Note, which is a service that, you can put your electronic releases everywhere you want, like Amazon and Spotify and so forth. But for this one, I just said, man, I'd like to do something with Jamie. We've been friends for like 20 years online, and so, yeah, I talked to him about it, and he said, oh, yeah, sure, So that's how it came about. Just the two great record companies I'm with that I really care.
Well, and knowing that you have that support, that really helps when you do things like sit down to record your music, because you don't have to think about, well, as soon as I get this done, I've got to work on this or that. You have trusted partners that you can work with. That's got to take a lot of that pressure off.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Scott from, Black House, just amazing guy. He was also in like Green Jelly and bands like that. So, wow. He knows the drill.
Right. I like when people come from an artist background, because that tends to stay in their head, at least for a while, until the corporate world takes them over.
Well, that's what I do. I mean, my day job is working in a pressing company, so I press releases for bands, and, I love working with all sorts of different bands. We have everything from gospel to classical to noise to, black metal, whatever. We'll do it all.
That's fun. I love that kind of variety, because it keeps it from getting stale. If all you're reporting on is death metal, after a while, that's going to get kind of old.
Yeah. So when a death metal, black metal band wants to press duplicate a cassette, for example, we do cassettes, we do vinyl, we do CDs, DVDs, USB keys, download cards. Here I am advertising for my company.
Nothing wrong with that. Word of mouth is everything these days.
Yeah. Once a salesman, always a salesman.
Yeah.
At duplication.ca.
There you go. I'm going to put that in the show notes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned that you've worked with Don Airey in the past. Don Airey has an interesting connection to Uriah Heep, which is my other show. And what was your experience working with Don? Because it seems to me that any interview I've ever seen of his, he's very much a gentleman, very considerate, really lighthearted.
He's a really enjoyable person. He has a great sense of humor. He's so easy to work with. He's professional. What can I say? And it's funny too, because like me and my wife, my singer, we got together because of Deep Purple, our love for Deep Purple, right? And of course, I'm the French translator for Ian Gillan's website, gillan.com. Mm-hmm. So I get to meet them often. And one day after a show in London at Hammersmith, me and my wife are kissing, and Don goes, "Hey, stop that." And we turn around and we go, "Hey, it's because of you that we're doing this." Everybody had a good laugh.
Oh, that's awesome. We have another rainbow connection to talk about, but first I have to ask you, I love Caramba. I speak very little French. I've forgotten most of it, but I love Caramba. I think it's a great site. How did you wind up doing the translations for that?
Oh, that's quite a story, because once I got on Caramba, it was 2003 or something like that. And I sent an email, to the address that was there, say, "Hey, I would love an autographed picture of you, Ian," right? And I'd say, "Thanks from Montreal, Jerry, blah, blah, blah." And one day in the mail, I get this picture of Deep Purple signed by all of them that Ian sent me.
Wow.
And that was cool. And then a couple of weeks later, I get an email directly from Ian, and he goes, "You're from Montreal. You speak French, right?" And I go, "Yeah." I answered. He goes, "How would you like to translate the website? I can't pay you, but you can have tickets and backstages anytime you want to any Deep Purple show."
Wow.
So I go, "Oh yeah, I'm in." So I've been doing that since. So that's how I met Don, and all of them actually.
Wow. The closest I can come to that is when he was doing his solo tour for the Gillan Zen album.
Yeah, I saw him on that too.
It was a great tour. I was living in Arizona at the time, and he came to Scottsdale in I think it was July or August, when it's 118 degrees outside. Great time to be in the desert. And I had reached out to his record company. I think it was Emergent at the time. And I said, hey, I see that Ian's going to be in town in a couple months. Is there anything I can do to help promote the show? So they sent me 25 posters or so. And they said, just, put these up somewhere where you're allowed to and take a picture and tell us what the location is of each of the shots. And I'm like, sure. Didn't really think anything of it. I'm happy to help. So on 2 very hot days, I went out and did that. And then I sent them the pictures and they said, okay, well, there's going to be a ticket waiting for you at the show. So don't buy a ticket. And I said, oh, that's very nice of you. I didn't mind doing the work. I wasn't trying to get anything out of it. And I get to the venue and I say, I should have tickets reserved for me. And they said, okay, here's your tickets and here's your backstage pass, which nice. I had no idea I was going to get.
Oh, that's always cool.
Oh, it was. I got unfortunately the meet and greet was just chaos. Everybody was there. Like everybody that was at the show got into the meet and greet. So I got about 3 seconds with Ian, just enough to shake his hand and say thank you for everything. And that to me is the most important thing. I'm not big on meeting names. I'm big on, I want to thank the people that have given so much to me and influenced my life. And, obviously Ian's one of those people, being a huge Deep Purple fan myself. So that was a really cool moment, as brief as it was.
You know what really cool moment happened to me one day? I was talking to you about, having a drink with Don to say thank you for playing on our album, right?
Right.
At their hotel. And then the next day, I got up like at 6 to go get a wristband to meet Jimmy Page.
Oh, wow.
So that happened. I got the wristband, met Jimmy Page for like 2 minutes. We talked. I gave him our album with Don on it. He thought it was cool. And that was that, man. I was floating on air for the next 2 hours.
Oh, I bet.
Because Page is like a huge influence too, you know?
A huge influence on the entire world of music.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's just amazing. But we have a rainbow connection too, because you have keyboard player David Stone in your band. How did that come about? Oh, Dave,
yeah, right. That's quite the story there, because I saw an old interview of Dave's around 2003, I think it was, and how he'd come out of he had substance problems. And he'd beat it, and he was starting to make music again. But I didn't hear anything he'd made since Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out he had played with Max Webster as well for on their last album and the tour after, which was nice and great music. Universal Juveniles, the album is called. He played on some of it, and. So I looked him up and saw if he was on Facebook, and he was. So I added him. I said, "Hey, what you up to?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm playing in jams in Western Canada," and he was making money that way, and it was cool, hosting and jamming and stuff. And at one point, I said, "Hey, you want to guest on our next album?" And he goes, "Sure." So he guested on Paradox of Denial, on the song Order of the Ember Queen. And that was great. That was fun. And we talked and, we got to know each other. And I said, man, I had a lot of fun doing this with you. And me too, he says. And I go, hey, you want to do a full release with me? It's a 4-song EP we're going to do. And he did that. So he was officially in the band at that point as a full recording member. And still is. And then we did Waterdog after that. And I am so proud of Waterdog and everything that Dave's put into there. I just let him loose, do what you want, give me your ideas, and I gave him writing credit on some of the songs because what he did was so good.
Sure.
Yeah. So Dave, and Dave, of course, he's a session musician now. So, I'm not monopolizing him. I'm saying, go out there, get some work, you deserve it.
Well, especially now, because most musicians' income is session work.
Yeah. And the idea of the only persons that are bound to AraPacis only, or me and my wife.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody else who plays in our band, who is a member of our band, we have no problems with them going and doing their other stuff, making money, because that's a reality.
Yeah, well, we have to have our foundation before we can do anything else. And I appreciate that. But what I really love about your story, Jerry, is that you have an idea and you just reach out and go for it. It's either going to work or it isn't, but you're not going to be sitting there at the end of your life going, what if I would have just, because you're going for everything you want now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My mom, who died earlier this year of COVID and dementia, she was a writer, and she did the same thing. She an older woman writing novels and stuff. That was so great, And
you were doing her editing.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, another thing we have in common. I don't edit people's books, but I'm a beta reader. So So for those who don't know, when an editor's finished with the book and the writer makes those changes, then they send it out to beta readers to say, okay, we need fresh opinions, people that have never read this. Is there anything that doesn't make sense? Anything that stands out to you as odd? And then they smooth all that out before they release the book. It could be a challenging thing, but to help another artist put out their dream into the world, that is such a thrill for me.
Yeah, that's great. That's just wonderful.
Before we get into the album itself, Waterdog, you have 3 solo albums out as well. I haven't had the chance to listen to them yet. Are they a similar style? Is it something different?
Yeah, it's like experimental. It's like the crap stuff you do before the better stuff. So I don't recommend them. I'm not even selling them. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it because you have to experiment. You have to test the waters, and you're not really going to know what you can do unless you find some avenue to push those limits.
Yeah. I just actually at one point after our 4th album, I decided to produce our own albums. And so the 5th was okay. The 6th was better. And Paradox, I love the mix on Paradox, and on Deja Hard and on Waterdog. These are all things I learned online, Coursera, Berkeley, all those courses, in music production, vocal production, and advice from a famous guitarist from a band with 2 female leads, which I won't name because he doesn't want to be named.
Okay.
Ex guitar player from that band helped me produce a single, and I took his lessons all the way to make the whole album like that. And of course, Frank Marino helped us produce Paradox of Denial. Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot from all these people. Now I know how to do a half this decent mix. What did you think of the mix on that one?
Well, being a sound engineer, I'm typically very critical of those kind of things. And I can say one of the things that really stood out to me right off the bat was how good the mix was. I love the balance of guitar and keyboards. I personally would have liked just a little bit more bass guitar, but please don't be offended by that because that's just my personal taste.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
The drums really cut through, which was nice. Love the sound of the drums. Just that really beefy snare really works for this kind of music.
That's like a Gretsch plated snare.
Oh, okay.
I use it on that drum kit there. I use that snare pretty well all the time. Mm-hmm. It just has a bang to it,
Yeah, it really does. I thought the guitar tone was fantastic.
Thank you.
Now, is that something that, you've been doing this for a long time, so is it something that you just kind of dial in and do, or do you really play with it and see what you can do differently?
Yeah, I do. I do play with it, get all sorts of different sounds, but I got my basic guitar hero tone, in the DAW.
Right.
So that serves me well for most hard rhythms. And then I got some softer stuff that I really play around with, like with choruses and phasers and you name it,
Do you find that it's almost difficult because we have too many tools available to us now?
No, I limit myself.
Oh, good.
I limit myself on the raunchier guitar. I know what I want. Mm-hmm. But on the softer guitars, that's where I have fun.
Yeah, I noticed that there was some really nice effects on some of the more emotional parts for guitar, but they were blended so well that you almost have to really pay attention to hear them. It's more like you feel them and don't hear them.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that, because I think people tend to use effects to define the sound instead of enhance it.
Right. Well, I've actually, for a long time, I've had, basically two pedals. I've had the multi-effects pedal, Boss ME70, and I have the SY300 guitar synth. I was endorsing Roland, here in Canada.
Oh.
So I got one of the first ones, and they're like the problems with the old guitar synths is you would hit a note and then it would be a few milliseconds before it came out. This is instant because they blended the original attack from the sound with the synth sound.
Oh, okay.
So SY300, really nice piece of equipment. So where I was going with this was that I had also amp and cabinet simulation, on that ME70. And after listening to Waterdog a few times, I go, well, why don't I try to reproduce that sound on the pedal too? Because it was like crappy to me, like the way it was coming out compared to the album. And the secret was just to turn off the amp simulation, turn off the cabinet simulation, and just pump up my Marshall a little bit on the gain, and add some echo to get that, what was I saying? Guitar Hero sound,
right? Yeah. Wow, that's smart.
So now I've got the same sound I had on the album. And back in the day, I used to put octave on the guitar synth to beef it up. So I did that again, put a tiny little bit of octave. Sounds great. I'm happy with it.
I do love a good octave pedal sound. I remember the first time I think I heard it was when Rainbow did the song Difficult to Cure, which is Beethoven's Ninth Symphony done in rock, but they did it with an orchestra. And I remember Richie's sound just sounded so weird. And I found out he was using an octave pedal to get it. And I'm like, that's just beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Richie was one of the first to use Moog Tauruses as well. Which was followed by Yngwie as well. But the first real octave sound I heard from a guitarist that I really liked was Leslie West.
Oh,
he had one of those hooked up, and he already has a beefy tone, just natural with no pedals. But when he was using that, it was like, wow, this is why they call it mountain.
Right. Well, it seems to me too that pedals have just gotten so outrageously expensive. I remember, in the 80s when a pedal was, $40 and we had to save up for it. Now, $300, $400, $500 some of these things. And I mean, granted, the technology is really cool, but I don't know how young artists are working their way into the business when the equipment is so expensive now.
But then again, $40 back in the 80s is like $600 now. So
well, that's true. Fair enough.
So my SY300, it's like they go for about $1,000, but I got a deal because I endorsed them.
Right.
But I'm not going to say how much. But
sure,
it was a good deal, and it has its drawbacks because it's not actual sample sounds. It's like having a mini Moog, say, and you got to try to get as close as you can to say that organ sound on it. It is feasible.
Sure.
And because I like the instant response, for me, that makes it a no-brainer, because I don't use that many sounds. I use a pad, strings, the odd fifth harmony and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But on stage, I try to keep it simple.
Well, that's the best, because the less things that you have, the less things can go wrong.
That too.
Yeah. Well, that was going to actually lead me to my next question, because I was thinking that now that you've conquered that sound on your physical gear, it's certainly going to help you in a live setting. Things are starting to open up here in America. Cirque du Soleil's opened 3 shows now. and some of the other shows have started to open. It's almost like now we're acting like nothing ever happened. I know Canada, it seems, has started to lift some of their restrictions as well. What are your plans, or do you have any yet for touring?
Well, usually we play 1 or 2 shows a year. We're more of a studio band.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, seeing like Dave, he's in BC and we're in Montreal. It's like kind of hard to to get together to do a show. But
sure.
We're hoping. We had made plans to play in Toronto as a band last year, but that fell through, obviously. But I'm still hanging on to, it would be fun to play a few shows with Dave because, yeah, he's just great,
Oh, yeah.
Amazing player, nice guy, easy to work with, enthusiastic about the music.
Oh, those are the people you want.
Yeah.
So did he record remote then?
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
He recorded remote, had a great engineer helping him, Tyler Christians, almost like a member of the band, basically, and a great engineer, and, Pineapple Sound in BC.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was just totally satisfied about the collaboration between, the three of us getting Dave's stuff over, and Tyler took some videos of Dave recording remote and from his home.
Oh, nice.
Well, it was great. You can see some of them on our page, actually.
Oh, good. I've got the page in the show notes as well for everybody. In fact, I've got links to the album and then your website. It seems to me that we're kind of getting used to this now, but I kind of miss the days of a band being together, or being able to be together in a studio to record, because it seems like the energy would be different. You're feeding off of each other in a live, real moment. But a lot of these remote recordings that I've heard, you really couldn't tell that you're not together.
Yeah, well, that was the point. You see, my wife and I were in the studio together, but we recorded our tracks separately. All the tracks were recorded separately. And my bass player was in one spot in Montreal. The violin player was in the other spot. And if you heard some background vocals from our boy, he's 10 years old, Gillen, with perfect pitch.
That's sweet.
Yeah, so he recorded a few background vocals on the last 3 releases.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. And no, I didn't feel any lack of energy or synchronicity. It just felt natural. Like the way it came out like hitting like a ton of bricks, basically.
Well, and the sound, everybody is just so unified. It's almost like you're in the room looking at each other, reading each other's minds. It feels so cohesive as every song.
Yeah, well, that I got to definitely compliment everybody who recorded on that, because they got it.
Mm-hmm.
They got it. The bass player was right in the pocket and with the drums, and Dave, of course, Dave's a genius. He came out with so much cool stuff. Like, it wasn't just a metal organ, it's like synths and strings and clavinet and piano, and his piano stuff is amazing too. Like, really, he's like, his dad was a pianist, and you can tell,
Well, I was kind of surprised to hear a piano sound in this music, but I thought it worked brilliantly.
Yeah, like I said, I let Dave just run with the ball, and he did, and wow,
Yeah, for sure. He added a lot. But speaking of people blowing me away, let's talk about Michelle, because her vocals are everything from angelic to demonic.
Yeah.
And how does she take care of her voice, or is that just something she has the natural ability to do?
Well, she was not a singer, but she was like practicing the tunes in our studio just for fun, like karaoke. When we had this last singer before her, and at one point it didn't work out with the last singer, and an interim singer we had who did one show with us, who argued with me all the time.
Oh, fun.
I don't know if she was right or I was right, but it was trivial.
Mm-hmm.
It was little things, and you don't want that in a band.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went to her one day and said, "You want to sing?" And she goes, "Okay." So, she developed slowly and surely. She started off with a, pretty basic voice, but then she got, I don't know if you ever heard the pop star Bela. Bela gave her some lessons, and then we had another person who gave her metal lessons, Izaniel, a great singer on her own right, who sings background on System Deceive, and Bela sings on Disturbing Awakening. So they both coached her how to, not hurt her voice and stuff like that, and musically. But she has one of the best growls and screams I've ever heard in the business. And that's natural. And her angelic voice, it's hard to find more angelic,
Yeah, it's just, I actually thought that there were two different singers on the album, because when I listened to it the first time, I didn't look anything up. I mean, I knew that you and David were on the album, and that's all I knew. I didn't know who did what. Obviously I knew David played keyboards and you were the guitar. That's all I knew, because when I listen to an album for the first time, I really just want to focus on the music. And when I heard her voice, at first I thought, wow, this is a really beautiful singer. And then the growling stuff hit, and I thought, who's that? I really thought they were two different people.
No, one and the same.
Absolutely amazing.
The only other vocals you hear is like me and Gillen singing back vocals on, for example, it's Champ or Paler Rider. Yeah. But it's all her pretty well.
Yeah, I think Paler Rider was when it really hit me what her vocals could do. And I was just blown away. I thought, this is such an amazing sound. And I really hope that she can sing this way naturally, and this isn't something she's straining to do, because it sounded so smooth and consistent that I was hoping it was natural.
Oh, yeah. It's all her. Very natural.
Wow. And I love the way that just organically came together, that she became a part of the band.
Yeah, really. She just grew into the position, getting better and better with each release.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's definitely the direction you want to go in. But as for you, I mean, you play lead guitar, you're playing some synth, you do the drums, you do backing vocals, you do mandolin. Is there anything else that you would like to add to your repertoire? Because that's a lot.
Well, I play on other albums. I played bass as well. On this album, I don't play bass. I don't play synths. I just play guitar and mandolin and back vocals. Because I got such good players. Why do I need to do it?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you can surround yourself with people, and then you're also getting their creative side of it as well, not just the performance.
Absolutely. If you listen, there's about 2 or 3 really great bass moments there where he just goes melodically along there, Jean, and almost solos, really.
Right. And I love the sound of his bass too. It really felt, it gave you a good bottom end, but it wasn't so muddy that you couldn't hear the dynamics of what he was doing.
Yeah, that's definitely the way he recorded it. And I didn't have much to do in production except just tighten it up.
Right.
But it was right there from the beginning. The original sound was clean and, punchy and deep when need deep. And Jean's a very melodic, and he has a lot of ideas, He's a great bass player. And I got to have a nice word about, Gwendolyne, Gwen, on violin. She always puts up these mini compositions, in our songs, 1 or 2 per album since the last 3. And she's great.
Yeah, and there's a stunning solo from her in, I think it's in the first song, isn't it? The Champ?
Champ, yeah, that's amazing. Like I said, it's a mini composition, If that song hadn't already been credited to 3 people, I would have given her credit on this one. But I'll get her eventually.
That's good. Well, see, and I like that you care enough to take care of your people, too, instead of saying, well, this is pretty much my band, and I want you to be on it, but I pretty much wrote the songs. I really love that you care about doing things the right way, taking care of the people that you work with. That means so much to me in this business.
Yeah, I wasn't always like that, though. The origins of the band, we had a lot of fights and discussions and stuff, and, while I was trying to take control. So I'm not an angel.
But you learned from it, obviously.
Yeah. because now I'm trying to keep the same lineup, and growing together musically, which is great, I mean, at one point, like my wife said, this is ridiculous. You got so many guests, and so, I mean, we even had Vinny Appice from Black Sabbath. We had John Gallagher from Raven playing bass on most of one album.
Wow.
Stuff like that.
Well, you can't go wrong with Vinny. I mean, what a rock solid drummer.
Well, what I did, actually, I was inspired by the song Sign of the Southern Cross on Mob Rules by Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
That beat, I said, I'm going to write something that Vinny's going to fit into like that. And I did. And, it's called Translucidity. Vinny just killed it, It was perfect for him. It was that kind of like Heaven and Hell or Sign of the Southern Cross slow beat that he's so good at. Because it's very hard for a drummer to keep a slow beat even.
It absolutely is.
And this guy, like, he kills it. He's great.
It seems to me that people's impression of drummers when I speak with them is that it's easier to play slow than fast. And I absolutely, as a drummer myself, I completely disagree. It's easier to keep an up-tempo beat because it's too easy to slip out of time when you're playing slow.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that because I play drums as well.
Right.
I got a nice little Alesis electronic kit here. And one day we decided, okay, so you want to put us in a category? We're going to do one completely Doom album, just 3-piece plus voice, which we did, called Deja Doom. And that was a fun experience, trying to get that Sabbath sound from Master of Reality on a song called The Green Fairy. That worked out amazing.
I'm a big fan. You mentioned Mob Rules earlier. That's one of my favorite Sabbath albums. That one and Born Again, of course.
Absolutely.
I just heard that they recovered the original master tapes from Born Again, and Tony Iommi is thinking about remixing it.
Yeah, but he says in time. He doesn't seem like in a rush to do it.
Yeah.
But I talked to Ian about that album, actually, and he said he loves the album. It's just the production that's bad.
Right.
I think what happened that in the studio, they had a switch set for a certain, EQ, and it was the wrong EQ, and it was too late to change it when it came out. It was like way too mid-rangey. So that's what I heard.
For me, I kind of feel like I'm so used to the sound of it that I really don't think about the production so much. But there was a recent debate on the Deep Purple podcast about the song Born Again and this flute that Tony Iommi was credited with on the back of the album. And finally found a video where somebody was able to identify the flute. And now I can't stop hearing it. In fact, I don't even hear the song anymore. Now I'm just hearing the flute.
There you go.
But it is a great album. And I know that Ian said that he has the monitor mixes that he said were, 100 times better than the actual production, which is a shame. But
well, I've heard some of the demos like from that, and they sounded great.
Yeah.
Such like the early mixes and stuff. Sounded better than the album in my ears, but if they do it, it'd be great.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. Any new release of that, I'm going to be chomping at the bit for, just because it's such a favorite album of mine.
Same here. I'll go buy it right away.
So is the plan then, because you talked about the lineup, is the plan then to start working on another album at some point?
Well, actually, I just in the middle of writing a first song for the next album today.
Oh, good.
Before I called you, I just did the ghost guitar track and some basic drums. So I'm going to send it to everybody, see what they think. So that would be there's your premiere right there. It would be called Suburban Mist.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's an intriguing title.
So it's got a really ghostly kind of jazz intro going into a 5/8 kind of beat, like arpeggios on the guitar. And then it goes full on like riff mode for like the chorus goes in. And then we're into like heavy mode, kind of like Children of the Sea chords, but the heavy ones for the choruses. And I got a 7/8 part in the middle for the lead break, which is all riff.
Well, it sounds like you're off to a really good start.
So yeah, it's an interesting song. And then it siegs back and
Very nice. Well, there were a couple of really nice timing changes too in Waterdog, where I thought I had to go back and listen to them and count them, just because I was so curious as to what they were. And there were a couple that were just changed to 5/4 from 4/4, and I thought, wow, it seems like it's a much more drastic change than that, but it really was just one more beat.
Yeah, I use a lot of different stuff. I have gone really overboard in the past, like with like an 11/8 or a 13/8 and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorites are definitely 5/8 and 7/8, like when I want to do off stuff.
Yeah, those are great time changes. But I remember my old roommate and I, we were big fans of Chick Corea, and we were listening to the album Inside Out. And he knocks on my door and he goes, "Come help me figure this out." He goes, "I can't figure out what time signature this is in." And this is a guy who is a really good drummer. You know, he was playing a lot of odd time signatures at the time in his band. And we each sat there with a stick in our hand, tapping on the floor, counting. And I looked at him and I said, "You're not going to believe this." And he said, "What?" I said, "This is in 4/4."
Yeah, I've done stuff like that.
Oh, I was blown away because it sounds like it's at least 7/8 or something even more bizarre. Because Chick Corea was such a master of masking things that you really never knew what was going on. And yeah, it was 4/4, just complete shock.
Yeah, one album that really blew my mind and changed the direction I played guitar was Return to Forever, Romantic Warrior, Al Di Meola, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like I listened to him and I go, oh, I got to play these mutes and stuff with my right hand and like up and downs and stuff. So I did. I learned that. My left hand is not as good as my right hand at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Never was. But, you know, to me, if I can do it, I'll try it. And if I can't do it, I'll try it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're not going to grow if you don't push the boundaries.
Yeah, well, this song here I'm telling you about, Suburban Mist, I'm using a lot of alternate fingering riffs instead of like easy ones for me. I said, okay, I'm going to push myself a little bit. So I did.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing the song that isn't done yet.
The fun part about all of this is I'll write the songs and then forget them. And then, oh, wow, we got to do a online show or whatever. I have to learn my own songs, you know?
Well, I was listening to one of the interviews with Deep Purple after they came out with their last album, Whoosh, and they were talking about that. They said, we put these songs together roughly, and then we go into the studio and record them, and then we have to learn them for the tour. And I thought, but you just recorded it. You know the song, but they know it enough to record it.
Yeah, exactly what I do. You know, I'll finish a song and like out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, yes, I got to learn 10 songs here for, the live show or whatever, you know?
Do you find though that when you're doing that, you look back and go, when did I write that? How did I play that again? It just kind of because it was in the moment.
Well. Yeah. So here I am. Some of the songs I've known for a long time because I wrote them in the 70s or 80s. Like, for example, The Champ, I wrote that in the 80s with my Toronto band back in the day, 84, 85. Return of the Light was written with a band in 78. And all the other ones are new.
Oh, okay.
But, so I'm ahead 2 songs to learn the stuff because I know them well.
Right.
I just learned Paler last week, Paler Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. Yeah, so for a live cast, I would definitely do Champ, Return of the Light, Paler, Groove Aquan, and The Mold. The Mold, I was kind of playing around with it too last week.
I don't know that I could pick a favorite on this album, but I am leaning toward Paler Rider. I think that's it. I mean, they're all such great songs to me, honestly, but that song really sticks out.
Yeah, it rocks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely rocks. I love that song. Michelle's favorite too, I think, on that album.
Okay. One thing too that I wanted to add before we wrap up is that I noticed that the way that the album ends, if you're listening on CD on repeat or your player in your computer where it's just going to repeat the album, the ending of the album flows beautifully back into the beginning.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I just thought it was such a perfect ending, and I like to do that. I like to see if it would just repeat. How does it flow?
That was just Mandolin.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, the ending of Elliptical Choice is the last picking is just Mandolin by itself with some echo.
Okay, I didn't pick out it was a mandolin. That's interesting. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that again now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've got mandolin. Let's see, I've got Mandolin on. I think on Elliptical Choice for sure. I'm trying to remember. Breach of the Humanoids and Elliptical Choice. I always do like one or two, sometimes three songs with mandolin on every album, except like Deja Doom, which, like I said, is guitar, bass, drum, vocals.
That brings me, I did think of something I forgot to ask you earlier when you were talking about it, but is, in this world, it seems to me like we have so many genres of music that really overlap. Do you find it difficult to really narrow down the title of what an album is? Not the title of the album, but the genre.
Not really. Like somebody said, it's all rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And they were right. I think it was Lemmy who said that.
There was somebody that said that to me. It was Roger Glover.
Well, there you go. There you go. Roger's a nice guy too.
Oh, he is. I got to meet him in person, had about a half hour to chat with him. It was such a great conversation. And I was explaining to him, how Deep Purple had influenced me. I said, and when I write a lot of my classical music, there's a lot of trade-offs like there is with Ritchie and John Lord. And John was still in the band at the time when I met him. And he said, that's great. It's all rock and roll.
Yeah, that's basically what I think. Oh, speaking of Roger, I mean, I've met him a few times, but the spookiest time, you got to hear this.
Okay.
This is spooky. So Deep Purple were playing in Ottawa. This is in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my wife are at a shopping mall in Ottawa called the Rideau Mall. And I just said out of the blue, in 5 minutes or less, we will see Roger Glover of Deep Purple. And guess who showed up?
That is the most random thing you could have said in any moment.
Yeah, and it was Roger. I could have said Don. I could have said,
Yeah.
I said, Roger Glover is showing up here in this mall. And we're just exiting the mall, and who's there? Roger.
If you would have started that story with, I met Roger Glover at a shopping mall in Ottawa, I would have said, okay, and how much alcohol was involved?
But so what happened is so we took some pictures, talked a little bit, and so I tell him the story, and he goes, "Oh, be careful what you wish for, because it could happen." So I used what he said as lyrics in another song of mine.
Very nice.
Yeah, but I've seen him angry once. Oh,
is that possible?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it in a minute. But speaking of influencing Deep Purple to do something, I did exactly that with one of my sons. We're backstage and we're with Don, and Don, like he always does a solo during the show that has a song that applies to whatever location he's in.
Right. So
he goes to us, you know a good Quebecois folk song or something, right? So we said, yeah, we know Jean du Pays, right? Which is like almost a national song here. And so he goes, well, can you hum it to me? So we hum it to him. And at the show, he goes out, plays a full orchestrated version perfectly of the song.
Wow.
And I go, that's us.
Wow.
And he did email me to thank me. Mm-hmm. And he played it the next day in Quebec City as well.
Amazing. That guy is just phenomenal. I mean, he covered a couple of gigs with Uriah Heep when Phil's son had passed away. And I thought, how do you just walk in and play a Uriah Heep gig on keyboards? That's got to be such a monumental task. But he did. Or
he walks in the studio and plays an entire Judas Priest album.
Right.
Painkiller, right?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So the guy's everywhere. Last I heard, he has 284 collaborations. If you look on his Wikipedia.
Wow.
And we're in there.
That's amazing. They talk about a guy that just loves to work.
Yeah, he's great. And he's covered Emerson as well, no problems.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on one of his latest albums, Keyed Up, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Roger being angry. Now that's a hell of a story. I've never seen Roger angry, but that time, yes. So what happened is that we're backstage, and Roger is talking to people, and people are getting in line, and this guy, like...
Okay, I'm sorry. What year is this? What's the time frame?
2008 in Germany.
Okay.
Out in Ravensburg. And that night they put us on the stage, me and my friend, Deep Purple. Like we're right on the stage with them. And they did that at one time too with me and my wife in London. In Glasgow. Anyway, so everybody's in line like to talk to Roger or Ian or whoever. And this guy with a huge pile of records pushes everybody away and gets in front of Roger. He says, "Can you give me a pick? Can you sign this?"
Whoa.
And Roger starts getting angry. And he goes, "You want my fucking beer too?" Stuff like that, And he starts pushing the guy. He says, "Get away, get out."
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man, He was angry. Wow.
That's so rude.
Yeah. And this guy, like pushing everybody like that. And what the hell?
Yeah, oh man, I would be upset too. And I'm sure it takes a lot to push a guy like Roger to be angry.
Yeah, because he's so amenable and affable and, he's a nice guy. I remember once we walk in backstage and he's serving drinks. "Would you like a beer? Would you like this?" That's Roger.
Yeah. Yeah. He did one interview with somebody while he baked them banana nut bread.
Oh, there you go.
When
That's Roger, all right.
When I met him, he said, we talked for pretty close to a half an hour, and he looked at me, he looked at his watch, he goes, "I really hate to do this because I'm really enjoying speaking with you, but we have to catch our flight. But I want to give you something." And so he's searching his pockets, and I said, "Well, Roger, you signed my book, because I got one of the tour programs." And he goes, no, I'm going to give you something. So he finds a pick in his pocket, and he gave it to me.
Yeah,
I got my hand,
I got a ton of Roger picks. Mm-hmm. Orange and green ones. They're all triangular.
Oh, this one's elliptical.
Really? That's rare.
Yeah, it's yellow. It just says Deep Purple on it, but it's got his name on the back. So he might have played.
Yeah, I got some of those from Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Steve got elliptical ones.
Yeah, Steve's another one that's just a really nice guy.
Yeah, truly nice guy. Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and telling these stories. I'm so excited about Waterdog. I apologize it's taken me so long to get to you guys because I wanted to do it as soon as the album came out. But man, you guys really came out with something I think is very special.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, you take care and you stay in touch, my friend.
You too.
All right. Keep us posted on the next album too, and we'll have you back on and we'll talk some more.
All right.
What a great guy, what a talented musician, and just so much fun to talk to. Such an interesting life he's had, great history, great experiences. And it just goes to show if you just go for the things in life that you want. I mean, he just reached out to David Stone and got David Stone to play on his album. How cool is that? That would never have happened if he just sat there and went, "Oh yeah, it'd be nice if he played, if I could do a song with him or something." You got to reach out and make things happen. That's how this podcast happened. That's how this interview happened. You just find something that you're interested in and you go for it. And it's either going to work out or it isn't. And in this case, both of these cases, it worked out very well. So stay tuned for the interview with David Stone. We'll be back in the next episode. Cheers.